Are live. All right, yeah, we don't have any intro. Hello and welcome to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. This is Conlon.
And this is Nathan.
And as always, well, at least for now for season 1, we are watching network television, procedural police dramas. We are watching 2014's NCIS New Orleans, 2008's The Mentalist, and 1984's Miami Vice. Because generally me and Nathan don't watch network television, and so we're exploring what other people see in network television, why millions of people are watching or used to watch network television. Because I was looking up some stuff on The Mentalist today, and I saw that, like, and I remember, like, The Mentalist not necessarily being, like, a number one show, but like you look at their ratings, it was like 10, 15 million people are watching that every week. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, there's a body of work out there about it. There's a lot of like, I don't just, I can a lot of the sources I draw from to talk about each episode, but I got to be careful because I don't want to know anything that happens. Yeah. So I have to oh, I'm not reading that, or I'm not. But yeah, I pull from a lot of different sources to find out what people think of that and why. And yeah, that show was pretty popular.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was even like a lesser show.
Last season, but yeah.
But that was like even like 10 to 15 million people watching. That was like a CBS lesser show. Like, NCIS was doing 20 million or whatever. But now it's like not even that. Now it's like, but now it's not even about how many people watch. It's about how many people in the demographic watch.
Yeah. It's all streaming services.
Yeah.
Which
yeah, because like
divide and multiply like cancer cells. So.
But like, yeah, I don't think like only football is like getting like that kind of ratings, like still like where it's like 10 million people watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it'd be like all Fox News would like be the number one show in all the places because like 5 million elderly people watch every show.
Fear.
Yeah. But then because only like 50,000 people in the demographic watch it, it doesn't rise up the ranking charts.
Yeah.
But anyways, as always, we start with NCIS New Orleans. We have season 1, episode 3, The Walking Dead. Original air date February 3rd, 2015, CBS Tuesday. The team attempts to solve a murder before it takes place after a Navy lieutenant commander discovers that he has been poisoned with a deadly amount of radiation. Showrunner Gary Glassberg, written by David Applebaum, directed by Edward Ornelas.
Yeah, this was a particularly sad episode.
Yeah, technically nobody dies, but somebody will.
Yeah, they will. That's why it was called The Walking Dead, because I guess Dead Man Walking, they might have got in trouble for that. I don't know, but yeah, and it has a pretty famous or pretty well-known actor in it. It's
B.D. Wong.
B.D. Wong, who was, I think,
probably most famous because he's like a scientist and has a line in Jurassic Park, but I most know him from like 7 seasons of Oz where he played the priest.
Yeah, that's where I remember him.
Yeah, but he's been in tons of stuff.
I guess he's a really he did great stage work for a long time. He's like one of those actors.
Yeah,
and but yeah, as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh wait, that guy's famous. Like, this was a very sad, poignant episode about families and screwed up things, and ripped right from the headlines. Of course, the agent of radioactive poisoning is polonium. Yeah. And I was like, well, okay, because I'm a connoisseur of weird shit like that. And there's a book about the Litvinenko assassination called A Very Expensive Poison. And it's why, and this was some of the stuff that kind of threw me in this episode, because that book talks not only about Litvinenko and some of the other people that have been poisoned, but why polonium is a signature like Russian message sent to people, because they're the only people in the world that make it anymore in any quantity. Because it's very dangerous, very unstable, and it has pretty limited applications. So you can use it for smoke detectors, and you use it to, it's an anti-static thing.
Yeah, because they said that Power's an anti-static fan in this episode.
Yeah.
which they're talking about. Like, this guy could have bought a bunch of anti-static fans and taken the polonium out and made a poison out of it.
Well, the main character, or the main guest in this, who's dying of polonium poisoning, is is Dr. Gabriel Lynn. He's a Navy psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And they thought, like, one of his patients, they're trying to figure out, like, who gave this guy polonium. This is weird stuff. And I mean, I was like, what, a fast breeder reactor? You can't make polonium, and the quantities that it's in material and stuff, it's like you could buy like 1,000 smoke detectors and maybe get enough to kill yourself. But it's a reason that this, because we quit making it in like the 80s. So any polonium industry needs, they buy it from the Russians. It's good because you basically have to have a fast breeder reactor and like saturate what is it, some kind of bimetal bismuth with like neutrons, and that's how it's like horribly expensive and dangerous to make and keep. And it's like, oh, this is okay, I'm gonna just go along with this because not very many people will read like a 600-page book about it.
Yeah.
Why the Russians kill people with radioactive agents, and they use Novichok because it's a lot easier to get through airports and stuff. So, but yeah, anyway, it was interesting. It was like, yeah, they got this from this was in the headlines at the time, but I doubt some like anti-government wacko is unless he's building a fast breeder reactor in his. Because he had plastic explosives in his trailer.
It said C4 right on it.
Yes.
Somehow got hold of C4.
And like 6 sticks of it, which would have blown that trailer to vapor. But for some reason, it's a fun show.
Yeah. So you have a millisecond to get across the information that this guy has rigged a bomb and it's very powerful. So you write C4 on a block of clay and you have a clock timer going down.
I always wondered why lunatics that have like a run out bomb, it's like, why put a visible timer on it? You know how long it is. You set it up. You don't need to go through the extra step of soldering in all the LEDs and stuff. But it makes for a TV show, if they just went in and looked at it and it's like, it's a bomb, we don't know when it's going to go off, it wouldn't be as compelling.
Yeah. Well, it's like I think that's like one of the complimentary things that Tom Clancy had to say in the commentary for Sum of All Fears. So I believe the bomb they put in the stadium, like there's no timer, it just suddenly goes off, and he's like, I appreciated that.
Oh, I forgot.
That's realistic.
I love that commentary. I forgot about that comment.
But it's purely meant to convey information to the audience. It's not realistic, but
it just there's 2 things that grab me in this episode. But again, I'm not gonna say it's a bad episode. It's well done. I mean, it's kind of horrible.
Yeah,
you have dark.
Yeah, the interesting new thing I heard of is they have here the live autopsy, where Wade has Lieutenant Commander Lynn on the table. And she's basically telling things that he doesn't want to hear because a patient who is blind to their fate is a better patient than one who isn't.
Because he knew all the psychological tricks she was doing. He was like, well, you're avoiding eye contact. You're changing the subject. What do you not want to tell me? He's like, do you really want to know what this procedure is called? He's like, yeah, it's called a live autopsy, which is like, yikes. And I went and looked it up. It's real.
Huh.
They don't tell people that.
Yeah.
I actually have another word for it too. Live autopsy is a little on the nose, but yeah, it's basically like some kind of Latin term that basically means like pre-mortem, something like that. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. And no doctor or scientist trained in the U.S. would use like the Latin term. I think the UK is the last place that teaches that parallel. So could be wrong on that, but.
Do you know like what instances do they provide like when they were used?
Anytime anyone has a terminal, like they know there's a terminal track.
Okay.
And there's like, we can gather information to help other people maybe in the future if we see how the degradation's occurring. And it was used with Litvinenko too. They were like, we don't know what this is, but we know what it's doing. And So yeah, it's like they were probably familiar with the case in some way. And I think that might have been where they got it from, because that happened in the UK, and that's where that term, like pre-mortem something or another, is like, oh, pre-death autopsy, but not like, it's like we're gonna pull your organs out while you're alive. That would be more of a horror movie genre.
Well, the fun side of the episode, we have LaSalle contemplating going skydiving with some Navy SEALs, and then we get to Sebastian, and he has what he calls a bucket binder, which is all the thing he wants to do before he dies, and it's just a binder full of stuff. And one of them's like, go to Utah.
Yeah.
He's like, that little square bit on the top, what's that about? Which was kind of funny and stupid. And then we also have Agent Bourne is back.
Yes. And she even makes a reference to, like, yeah, with like 2 months of training, I could transfer from, Coast Guard investigative services to naval, which was, I don't know if that was a throwaway line or.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, you're going to work with, what's the guy's name?
In DC with,
yeah, going to work with Gibbs in DC. Now I want to work where I can get bourbon in my coffee, and it's not a big deal. It's like, we're all a bunch of drunks here in New Orleans. She didn't say that. That's my thought bubble. But
this was something that I think might give it away, but I always look at like how many episodes it says, like how many episodes she did of the show, and I think it's 3, so I don't think she joins the show as far as I know.
Yeah.
But I believe we got her for one more episode this year, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why they involve like the guy I think is first is some like former Coast Guard, so that's why she gets called in, because apparently now he's just like a criminal. Yeah, we've been looking for him, and you also have the weird whistling interrogation where they take him down and like everybody's whistling. It's weird and uncomfortable, but they get it done, I guess.
Yeah, it seemed like that was kind of overwritten, like, oh, you're whistling Dixie, you know what that means, and it's like, yeah. And then they start whistling other things, like, you're gonna be whistling all alone in a prison cell the rest of your life, which he would anyway, because he had a pound of plastic explosives wired to gasoline in his trailer.
Attempted murder of a federal officer.
I like his getaway car, because at that time it was a Dodge Charger.
Yeah.
But at the time of the show, that car would have been like maybe 4 years old. It's like, what did he do to this car? But I think that's like the kind of car like an anti-government person would drive. Maybe it was supposed to look stripped down so they can't track him with the computers in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's all made out of stolen parts, and there's no VIN number you can track it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of making up stories as I go along. It's like, why are they having this weird car chase? That car is a V8 rear-wheel drive car that could absolutely blow the doors off of a Taurus and a Explorer or whatever those are called. It's like, those are not really fast cars. I mean, they are police cars now, but the Taurus police cars were special. They were like all-wheel drive, and I don't even make them anymore. So, but they have Explorers, the same platform. Useless car information for anyone who wants it. So yeah, that was like interesting.
We have Dr. Wade estimates Lynn's death to be in 14 days, and Pride. Wait, I don't think Pride. Yeah, Pride knows, right? But he just keeps the paper and he lets Lynn decide whether he wants to look at it or not.
Well, Lynn, he puts it in front of Lynn and he just stares at it, and it's kind of a thing between them as the conversation's going on. And he's like, "You read it, Pride," and he's like, "Why?" And he's, "Because I want you to know how long you have to solve this case." Yeah, no pressure.
Then Wade probably tells somebody. Oh, she must tell Sebastian. She tells somebody how long he has to live, and then it's a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, they find the plutonium was in the toothpaste, and then you find out the brother is suspicious, which in the early on he immediately said, "Oh, it's not his brother," so they didn't. Well, they presume for the show, it presumed they didn't look him up, but then it's like, no, Pride looked him up because
he's a good cop and he knows. And there was a land dispute about some land in Taiwan.
Yeah, I think so.
And which is where like the story expands, because you think for sure it's like it's got to be the brother.
Yeah.
It's got to be the brother, and then
Well, then it ends up being the company, which was it Omnicore,
something generic like that.
which is basically like, isn't that what like in RoboCop isn't it like OCP's like Omnicore Productions or something like that?
It's Omni Consumer Product.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah,
Because they had a cool logo. Because
yeah,
it was the O, the C, and then the P was the surround.
yeah.
And it went down. It's good production value. Actually, it looked cool. It looked menacing. So it was like, yeah, this is kind of cool. And it's called Omni Consumer Products, and they make like military equipment.
But yeah, so then they talk to like the CEO of the oil company, and then because it would be like it would be if the brother dies, then the older brother would get this land and it's worth millions of dollars. But it's like, well, if they're both out of the picture, well then the oil company can like take it over for reasons. And then the oil company guy, he thinks they're talking about a different case which involved Russians and polonium poisoning.
Yeah.
And like, oh wait, you're not here to talk about that? Well, you can talk to my lawyers then. So that's the only time they kind of like they graze against like a possible Russian involvement.
Yeah, I mean that's the first thing everyone would have thought of.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
But then it turns out the older brother's wife did it.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, and it was a turn. I didn't see, but her suspicious interaction in the garage.
Yeah, when they make the specific point about her dad sending her plastics and stuff, it's like well, this isn't there for no reason.
Yeah, this isn't a character quirk that her dad owns like a plastics company and just sends her like Tupperware shit. And we know the older brother is also bad at investments.
Yeah.
Because he lost $600,000 on the stock market, I guess. And so they really paint it out like it's like, oh, it's got to be the brother. But I know NCIS New Orleans. It's not the brother. That's too on the nose.
Yeah.
And the brother, actually, that actor, he never portrayed that he was a bad guy. He was just kind of angry about things.
Yeah.
But I never believed that guy was like, oh, I'm going to murder my own brother. It's like, nah, that doesn't seem to be...
I mean, he's still like mad with his brother, but he's like, I'm going to kill him. Like, what do you think I am?
Yeah, it's like, that's nuts. And I'm not going to kill him with stuff that's like hardly available and very, very unique.
Well, I mean, they pin out to his brother because I guess he's around some drills that use polonium. So it's like, well, he had access to it.
Right.
So, but that was like the misdirect. But also, like, there's the part where he's almost going to drink the water and, like, the whatever Geiger counters they have pick up on it. It's like, oh, well, he would like, accidentally try to kill himself in front of the cops if he was really good.
Knock it out of his hand.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know what kind of guy. Just to go back to, like, all the research I've done about this unrelated, like, that whole house, if they had water in their fridge that had polonium in it in a plastic container like that, as soon as they flipped on their Geiger counters when they walked in the house, they would have been like, like that stuff is because the two guys that killed Litvinenko, because they had it like in a little package or vial, they took it out of its sealed container so they could put it in his tea. Like their room, you couldn't go back in it. You couldn't use the elevator for like 2 months because they just had it out like that, and it got on their hands when they poured it, and they used the elevator to go back upstairs. That stuff is wildly radioactive and dangerous. So, but anyway, for the show, it worked. But yeah,
so like the thing of like it kicks out alpha particles, which alpha particles aren't necessarily dangerous because they can't get through your skin, but if you ingest it, they can't get out.
Inside you, you're fucked. Yeah. It radiates. I don't know. I could look it up, but we don't want to be investigated by.
Well, basically, like once it's in your body, it can't leave your body. That's the thing.
No, it's not going anywhere. It basically destroys your organs. And it's not like you just drop over dead on Tuesday. It's a long, agonizing. I mean, Litvinenko. It was a horrible death. I mean, it's something where you're like, he lost 50 pounds in a week. It's like, oh yeah, he's dying. Like it's seriously.
Must
And it
have been
gets to the
water
point,
weight. It's like, no, it's organ weight.
yeah, and it gets to the point they can't really give you pain medicine because it doesn't, like, your circulatory system isn't working right, and it's horrible. So yeah, it's bad stuff.
Yeah,
It's an unnecessarily cruel way to kill. So you could just shoot someone, or give them like curare or something else that the KGB likes to use. But yeah, it's bad stuff.
but yeah, that makes the happy with the sad. So LaSalle decides he's going to go skydiving, and there's something with Brody maybe like dating the new psychologist at the Navy. But then it ends solemnly with the brothers decide they're going to go running like one last time in the morning. And that's how the show ends off. So.
Yeah, that was a strikingly, like, I've never been like really emotionally involved in NCIS in the world. There's always like exciting stuff going on. It's like, how are they going to react to this bad thing or that bad thing? But the thing with the two brothers, I think it's because those guys are like really good actors too, and you're sort of invested. It's like, well, this guy, like, he knows he's going to die from the beginning of the show. It's just a clock running down, and it's like, they actually get a chance to make up. But of course, the older brother's whole life is destroyed because his wife is killed someone and tried to kill him, and it's like, oh, my whole life was a lie, and now I'm going to bury my brother in a couple days. Like, this is great. Where does this end? But it was well, that was like, this is the first time NCIS is like, this is a dark episode. Even though they have their kind of their upbeat stuff.
Yeah, that's just kind of what these shows do, where it's like unnecessarily upbeat stuff in the midst of something horrible.
Yeah, this guy who really did nothing wrong is going to die horribly in like 14 days. How's your dating life? How's your sex life? Well, I guess you just can't bore into it or you go crazy as a cop. But yeah.
Well, the one bit that made me laugh was when the Boren and Pride are talking to Sebastian, and Boren asks Pride's like, what do you say to him when he says weird stuff like that? He's like, you just nod and smile. And she just nods and smiles in this really obvious way. It's very funny.
Yeah. But then she seems to have a thing with him, like when he ran down where the polonium came from, who makes it, who had access to it, and what companies. And he gives him this sheet, and she's like, oh, I like you more and more every day. It's like, and there's always been weird energy between them.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's her being manipulative, or it's like, because she seems like that, a weirdo like that, but with more of an outgoing, aggressive personality. But she's someone who like knows obscure facts and weird things, and maybe believes in conspiracy theories herself. And so, yeah, this is a very dour episode for Dr. Wade, because remember, she was doing the live autopsy.
Yeah.
And then they all start talking about what they would do before they died.
Yeah, that's where you get the bucket list stuff and the skydiving thing. Because everybody, this show like makes everybody make a new decision in their life because of the of how the case turned out. It's like, oh, this is super sad. I guess we better get on with our lives and do something. Yeah,
that's what I liked about it. Like, everyone was affected by it, because this is obviously a good guy, just a psychiatrist trying to help people, and it's it turns out he was murdered by his brother's wife, and it's like, oh, this is awful. And she must be like a complete sociopath. Like, I'm just gonna sit here and watch these two die of the same obscure, kind of hard to get, uncommon poison that's immediately traceable to something, and no one's gonna suspect me, right? It's like her motivation was kind of weird, but
it's just like, I'll get money because my husband's bad with money.
Yeah, and I don't want my dad controlling me anymore. And it's like, wait a minute, you used him to get the fucking poison. It's like, how's that going to go down? So it turns out like the holding company wasn't, I mean, they are evil, but not in this case evil.
Yeah.
So.
It was another misdirect.
Yeah.
The evil company didn't do it.
This time. Or did they? Dun, dun. Like, do they also like sub-own that plastics company? My dad had to sell out to Satan. Satan Incorporated.
And for a second show, The Mentalist, Season 1, Episode 13, Paint It Red. Original air date, January 18th, 2009, CBS Sunday. So this is our first change because usually this was a Tuesday show.
Okay.
And Sunday is like usually a well-respected time slot because that's usually like Thursday's the most. That's where you get your most advertising bucks, but like Sunday's a pretty good time slot too because that's when you're guaranteed that because people have to go to work tomorrow, so it's almost guaranteed they'll be at home and lots of people will be watching Sunday night television shows. So
yeah,
it's Friday and Saturday where like pretty much nobody watches television because they're out doing things.
Yeah, they're out getting drunk.
But that's why there's like, so there's shows on Friday, but they're usually kind of very niche specific shows where there are basically no shows produced for Saturday except for like Saturday morning cartoons, but that's, that's for kids. But there's not like, usually like Saturdays when like a network will have like a movie premiere.
Right.
That's usually when you have like, it's like, oh, see Jurassic Park for the first time on NBC or something like that.
Yeah. It's always, they don't really do Saturday morning cartoons anymore.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I gotta look for them.
But yeah, it's probably just streaming now. No, they just exist.
Yeah,
So
I don't have to be sold cereal between them. Because when we were kids, like Saturday morning cartoons were tied to products that they were making.
Yeah,
which is why I think they don't make them anymore because they passed some law about that.
Well, I mean, so there was a law that did prevent that, but then Reagan they struck down that law, and then that's why you have all those like advertisement shows. Because it was seen as manipulative, like you're manipulating children to buy toys through propaganda. Essentially, it's on TV posed as a television show. It's like, yeah, we all know. Yeah, that's okay. As long as the toys are cool, the cereal's good. We don't care.
As long as the toys aren't teaching the children communism.
As CBI discovers that an executive's murder is tied to the theft of a valuable painting, and the investigation leads to confrontation between Patrick and a Russian mobster who wanted the painting. Showrunner Bruno Heller, written by... So, I'm very confused by this guy's name. Last time I said it's Yogan Mahoney. I was listening to a podcast, and they've actually mentioned this guy, and they called him Egan Mahoney. I looked up pronunciation guides, and they're saying Egan Mahoney. So I'm just going to call him Yoga Mahoney because that sounds cool.
Yeah. Weird name. Where's this guy from? Let me look it up.
I looked up his internet movie database, and there's like no trivia whatsoever, but there might be some on
he's just
Wikipedia.
A writer and a producer. Yeah, that's all I found. Okay.
Directed by David Barrett.
I'm going to call this the Jane workout, video. Because he seemed to be like the only actor in the whole show. It stood out to me. I don't know. Maybe you don't agree, but it's like he seemed to like do the whole show. Like he was constantly.
They kind of split everybody apart because this is kind of a first time where you have Van Pelt and Jane kind of like team together, and then like they have Rigsby and Cho come in at one point, but like that. It's very sectioned off, but like Lisbon's barely.
Cho's staring off into the middle distance and being logical again. The last episode, he was scared of witchcraft. I was like, this doesn't seem like his character, but okay.
But the show starts with people having sex, and I immediately called that they're the ones that are going to find the body, and of course they do.
Yeah.
But then they lie about them having sex in the office because it was like I guess they have an overbearing CEO boss, and they don't want to like reveal that they were inside his office, so they drag the body out to in front of the office, and basically everybody gets fired because of Patrick Jane just picks up on it immediately.
I mean, it was the blood trails. Nah, I'm kidding. I know.
But yeah, there is the AP Cade is the CEO, and Harry Lashley is the body, who is also AP Cade's son-in-law, and it's someone stole the painting. Of course, we saw in the rundown, and somebody murdered him. So they're trying to figure out, like, was Harry Lashley in on the job and then got killed because of it? Did he surprise somebody? Yeah, we don't have the APK doesn't come in for a while. If the first go to the art buyer for APK, which is Catherine Hawks, and they just like run down. They just talk about what he buys essentially and how outrageously expensive it is. But then this is where we have.
Arlov.
Who?
Oh, I'm the character, the Russian gangster.
Oh no, not yet. He doesn't show up till like maybe like the last third of the show.
Oh, I thought they mentioned him because him and the other
guy
were bidding war.
Yeah, because they did have like a picture. They had like a picture, like a surveillance picture of the Russian gangster, but I can't remember where they fit that in. Because it's like, it's like, yeah, because they intimate that they're rivals, but like the Russian guy actually kills people.
Yeah, they're both like oil scum, but
yeah,
the Russians will actually kill people.
But Jane and
bad guys.
But they find a check for $20,000 to some like art studio in a small town in like Northern California or something. And so Jane and Van Pelt go there to investigate, and Jane takes Van Pelt because like they're just gonna go there and like pretend to be something, and she's very uncomfortable with it because this is another thing, like we're showing off like the how good the CBI people are, is that they're just very bad at lying and they're very uncomfortable about it. So it just goes to show like their purity, I guess, or something. Like we have Jane's weird car, which we've seen before. I think you've mentioned what it was, but I just forgot about it.
Yeah, I forget which what is that thing called? Anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, they find the studio, and it's just like a art studio where a guy is doing portraits for people, and then Jane makes everybody uncomfortable because he pretends to be like him and Van Pelt are going to get married, and he wants a portrait of her, and so this lets Jane just go throughout the house, and he finds a forgery of the painting that they're looking for, and the guy like misdirects Van Pelt and then pulls a gun on her, and then they walk back into his house. But then like it turns around. It's like it's meant to be like kind of a misdirect. It's like, oh wait, is this guy who's seemingly nice because he tells her like, you shouldn't marry that guy because he's an asshole, and she's like, oh yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. I'm already not marrying him. Now I'm really not marrying him.
But then he turns out to be like more or less a good guy. But then they talk about the ethics of art forging, and Van Pelt is not amused by it, but because she just thinks he's a forger. And then Jane's like, oh no, this is a proven art, that's fine. Because they talk about how the guy what lie he tells himself is that like if a painting's really that expensive, you want to display it where anybody could get it, so you make copies of it, but he calls them copies and not forgeries, so that like the real one is always hidden away. But then the guy reveals that he, in every art piece he does, he puts something that's a little bit wrong to indicate that it is not the original.
Yeah.
Which here it's like a telephone line, and the other one it's like an AK-47.
Yeah.
Which is fun because that's the one he ends up giving to the Russian guy. But yeah, then we get back to like APK shows up, and he's absolutely doesn't care that his son-in-law was murdered. He just wants his painting back because it's worth $50 million.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is where they pick up stuff on Harry that like he robbed a store he worked for and like did like 6 months in jail in like Canada or something like that. And so now they're back to being suspicious of the victim. Yeah, and this is where the Russian oil baron Arlov comes up, But and then they go back to CBI headquarters, and Lisbon's like, "Yeah, we can't touch him because he has diplomatic immunity." And of course,
That
Jane's
old
like,
saw.
"Yeah." Jane's like, "Yeah, that's fine. We can work around this." And she's like, "No, you can't." Yeah, absolutely. It's like, that's all right. And so he convinces Cho and Rigsby to go to L.A. because it's like a few hours away, so they have to drive there to try to somehow investigate and or interrogate the diplomatic immunity oil baron. And his just house, he's just like in some apartment or something, or house or whatever, just full of drugs and women.
Yeah, there's people like just snorting coke right off the table.
And there's a fun scene where Lisbon comes in and she's like, "Where is everybody?" And Van Pelt tries to lie, but she's bad at it. And it's like, and one of the lies is that Rigsby's on a hot date, and Lisbon's like, "He's not on a hot date, he's in love with you." And then that immediately makes Van Pelt embarrassed. It's like, "Wait, how'd you know?" It's like, everybody can see that.
Yeah, Van Pelt, the ultimate naive character.
No, she says like Cho is at like a Kings game, but like it reveals that Lisbon is also a basketball fan because the Kings are in a on an East Coast basketball tour at the time, so they aren't in town. But yeah, then you have Jane like cons his way into the party at the Russian's house, and then they like have a interrogating conversation. But like Jane's like trying to, he pulls out his badge, even though they're not supposed to use it essentially for this. But he just does that just like so the guy won't kill him, because like we know they know I'm here, so don't kill me. That's only going to be more hassle for you. And you think he brings the one of the forgeries that they have, but he doesn't. He just brings this line drawing that obviously will piss off the Arlov.
Yeah.
But then they have a cut because they have Cho and Rigsby are like standing on standby. It's like, well, they're not going to raid the place. What are they going to do? And then when he basically gives the go signal, they pull a fire alarm, and that's when Patrick Jane does some like magician trick with the painting where it's like he swaps it by slamming it together and it magically switches the paintings or whatever.
Yeah. Didn't quite understand that one, but like, okay.
Well, I just got it understood as like some magician's trick, but like, it's not revealed like how it actually worked. He just kind of pushes them together, and like some mechanism takes the painting out or something and swaps it, because he has the line drawing, but that's hiding the fake they have underneath, and then that swaps the fake with the real one. And so then they get out of there. And it turns out the art dealer did it.
Yeah.
Which it's like another thing where they Jane like grabs the painting, and they say it's real, and they throws it in a fire, and then like because the art dealer didn't react to it, like that means that she knew it wasn't the real one because she stole the real one. So
yeah, Jane had some great line to the art dealer. It's like yeah, you love art, but you have this job where you got to work for greedy, selfish men that are too stupid or vile to appreciate art.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, that's a good Jane line. And then he references his daughter when he's talking to the guy who doesn't even care.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I had a daughter once, and he almost never talks about that. It's like, oh wow, he's mentioning that, but it's to drive home a hard point. So yeah,
because like at first the guy was all happy because he's like, yeah, we tricked the Russian guy. And it's like, is this legal? It's like, well, technically he stole it and I just stole it back, so it's
it cancels itself out.
Yeah. It's right. It's right in the window that Jane plays in. So. Um. But yeah. There's then this just kind of like. But yeah, APK, he doesn't really care about like they solved a murder. That he just like cares that he got his painting back.
Yeah.
That's where like Jane uses his daughter as a thing to point out like it's like you are a fool for if you're just dismissing your daughter for your things you have.
Yeah.
You know, the dad's like, yeah, we'll get you a real man and everything will be okay. Which is weird. It's the art dealer did it. They arrest her, and then they're just kind of back at CBI, and I forget what they have like one of the forgeries, but Jane just kind of like is fooling with Cho and Rigsby. Is like maybe it is the real one, and it's like I don't know. And he just like goes to sleep on the couch.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of up there in the air. Like is that a $50 million payment?
Because they have to give one back to the the art forger, but they don't go back to that. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah, it just kind of ended. But I just saw this as a mostly Jane episode because like the other people are there.
Yeah,
but it seems to be like has all the momentum in this episode, which was I don't know if they're going a different direction because he is basically the title character. He's the mentalist, but. Yeah. It's like, man, this guy must have been exhausted by the end of this series.
I mean, maybe that's how, like, I don't know, I'd have to compare it to the other Yogan Mahoney episodes, but maybe he just really likes to write for Jane and nobody else.
Yeah, well, that guy's a really good actor, too. So it's like, oh, he's going to make this great.
But, it was a fun episode, so I can't say it was bad or anything. Just
yeah, I liked it.
A lot of good bits, yeah. And our third show, we have
Miami Vice.
Miami Vice. January 11th, 1985, NBC Friday. Crockett and Tubbs work undercover in a hotel. They uncover criminals that are old enemies of Lieutenant Castillo and also kidnap Castillo's long-lost wife. Showrunner Michael Mann, written by Joseph Gunn and Maurice Hurley, directed by George Stanford Brown. That description of the show is kind of misleading because like half of that description doesn't happen till like the last 5 minutes of the episode, but it is accurate.
Well, this is a 2-part episode.
Yeah, it's a 2-parter. Yeah,
and it changes direction, kind of. I mean, it doesn't, but it seems.
Well, it starts out as like, it starts out very, very silly. And usually when a Miami Vice episode starts out really silly, there's going to be some real hard turn later on. So.
Well, this isn't fun anymore.
It starts out with
Crockett and Tubbs they're posing as hotel security at a high-end hotel.
Yeah.
And a guy's on PCP apparently.
Yeah.
And he's having a fight with his girlfriend and they break that up, which it was kind of weird because it's like, what are they doing? Why do they have these weird IDs on and stuff? And but so they get this guy off this woman, try to calm everyone else down who's just standing there watching it happen, and then she comes back and attacks him again. So this guy, now they have to drag him downstairs because he's all freaked out because she doesn't make good cupcakes or something. He's on PCP, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So they handcuff him to the rail outside of the lobby of the hotel. And they're like, yeah, this sucks. They just hate this. And Crockett's looking at his Rolex to make sure it didn't get broke in the fight. And it's like, and then they meet Castillo in a bar. And he's like, they're like, he's like, I know you want off this detail, but, we're talking dirty cops here because dirty cops are supposedly pimping hookers through these high-end hotels.
Or they're extorting the hookers.
Yeah.
Working at the hotel.
Yeah, it seemed, I didn't know if, it was kind of like it was just like a protection racket or are they the pimps? I didn't know.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a protection racket.
Okay.
Because, when we get to that one part, it was like they're asking for $500 a week.
Yeah.
And like that's all they did. They just need $500 a week and they'll go away. Like, so they weren't like involved in the process of it or anything.
So then let's see. Let's jump ahead a little bit.
But we have a Great Balls of Fire remix, and is that Dolly Parton doing it?
I'm not sure if it was Dolly Parton or I'm not sure if that was something done, because for some reason in my notes that didn't list. Usually it lists all the music.
Okay.
And this just comes across as what is it? It just comes across as it's like bump music. So they might have just recorded it. Let me look. That's important.
Well, I thought it was like some 80s remix, but then there's like a kind of a southern twang to it, and I was like, wait a minute, is that Dolly Parton singing? So
it sure is. Okay, I found Dolly Parton did do a cover of Great Balls of Fire.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that's got to be it. I didn't know for sure. I thought it was like, oh, did they do hire some cover band to do it? But it has to do with the way they were playing it and cutting it up too. It wasn't really like, because they were talking while the song was playing a lot too. So it's like, huh,
yeah.
what?
Well, they're outdoor at a pool, and they're like, this is where they show off like the call girl ring at the hotel. And then like Crockett is disguised as a nerd. He even has a calculator watch, and he's just looking at like rings of paper and like doing calculations, presumably.
Yes, he's dressed up like a Revenge of the Nerd 80s nerd. Yeah. And so then Candy, one of the prostitutes working at the hotel, she's like, put oil on me and all this stuff. And then comes the pitch. It's like for $50. I was like, $50? Jesus. What do you get for that? AIDS? But, it seemed awful cheap for sex. But I've never dealt with prostitutes. Yeah. Maybe it is that cheap. Doesn't sound. I mean, it's $50 is like cheap AIDS, but
condom is extra.
Yeah, condoms. What are you talking about? Cost money. We've got to cut costs here.
Basically, they snag Candy and like bring her in, and they want to make her a confidential informant, essentially.
Yeah.
To catch the bad cops. Who she kind of had a brush in with the cops before, but she just like blew them off.
Yeah.
But she's like back at the hotel, but they also have like, so now they're like pretending to run like a prostitution racket out of the hotel to attract the bad cops' attention. And then at the same time, there's another guy that comes in because Crockett's running security, and they have like bank vaults at the hotel, and this guy wants to like rob the bank vaults at the hotel. So now they have two schemes they need to run up as the hotel security cover.
Yeah, so they're trying to do like the same thing to attract the attention of the corrupt cops.
Well, it's like, it's them pretending to run a prostitution ring attracts the attention of these guys. Like, oh, they're dirty. Like, let's bribe them so then we can get into the bank vaults.
Yeah.
Or the security or
safety deposit box.
Safety deposit box. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they let Candy go home one day, and they follow her because the cops follow her, so it's like a triple following. And then the cops like beat up Candy, and then that's when they
wearing a wire.
Yeah,
so it's all recorded.
But that's like enough information for them that they can bring the cops down. And then they start running like traces on the other guys, but then like was it come back like one of the guys is supposed to be dead or something?
Yeah. This is when the story like expands and it's like, oh, there's something bigger going on.
Yeah. And then like they're supposed to like set up this deal where the place gets robbed, but then they just like rob it beforehand because they have all that they need, because they just like hack into the door code at night, and then rob. And they don't know what deposit box they get into, so they just rob every one of them.
Yeah.
But then they leave like most of the stuff behind. But apparently the thing that they needed was like some documents, and then they're back at a hotel, and they unload the documents, but also some jewelry and money too. And then a ninja just shows up and shoots them.
Yeah, it's weird at this point. It's like it takes a turn. It's like, what is this? What's going on? And why is this guy killing these people this way?
And then that's when Castillo like reveals that this has to do with like an opium and heroin trade out of Thailand from a former Chinese general.
Yeah, this is a Castillo episode. It gets very Castillo centric as we find out about his dark, weird past and all his strange skills.
Yeah. He said he worked in the mountains between Burma and Thailand undercover for the DEA for 3 years.
Yep.
And then they go to some Thai restaurant and they find some guy that matches something that Castillo knows, because I guess the guys were murdered or mutilated in a specific way that Castillo knew it was like this Thailand gang or whatever.
Well, also one of the guys had a tattoo on his arm.
Yeah.
That Castillo like immediately flips out like, it's like, what is that? It's like special forces or something.
Well, when they're saying Thai and tongue and mutilation. So at first I thought they were talking about a Colombian necktie. It's like, oh, this is about drug dealers. Like, oh, wait, no, he's just completely different. He's talking about Thailand.
Yeah. Yeah, when I heard the Thai thing too, I thought like, well, they didn't have their throats cut and their tongues pulled through. I'm like, that's the Colombian necktie. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, like Thailand, like, yeah, like the really hot, good food, Thailand. That's all I know about Thailand is their food is great. It's very hot.
Then they go to the restaurant. And the guy has some tattoo on him that Castillo recognizes, and he directs Tubbs to like cover the back, and he goes into the kitchen. The guy throws a knife at him.
But let's talk about the build up to him walking into the kitchen and eye fucking this guy for like a minute. Like,
yeah.
What's that all about? It's like everyone's looking, they're looking, his eyes, Castillo's eyes. It's like that was a weird extended, like, what are these guys? I didn't know what the point of that was, except maybe they're just weighing each other up. It's like, how much is this, you know?
Oh, he's like, I think it was some like weird intimidation thing to see who breaks first or whatever.
Yeah.
To see what I don't know. But yeah, because he's looking at everybody in the room, but he just waits till the guy throws a knife at him, and then he has this weird. Well, I guess it's not a weird thing. He's very careful about like before he like goes around a corner, like he correctly like looks up and down and then moves slightly degrees and keeps scanning the area before just rounding a corner and just running into somebody like going to kill him.
Yeah, Castillo's a thoughtful guy in a lot of ways.
And then, like, the guy runs out the back and then just like karate chops Tubbs to the ground. And then Castillo's like carefully exits, like he doesn't even like to make sure no one's behind like the doors or whatever. And then he's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah." And then he tells him to like run back to the restaurant. Then Castillo gets in a martial arts fight with this guy, and Castillo wins.
Fight, yeah.
Oh, it's even
almost
weird.
Doesn't though? He gets whacked around.
Yeah. And then somehow the assassin guy kills himself by swallowing his tongue, which I think is impossible. But
yeah, you never know. It's the mystery of Thailand.
Yeah.
And then, you know, kind of because so he beats on his chest and tries to pop his tongue out of his mouth, which you could just reach in and pull it out if that's even possible. But you know, it's for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
And then
I remember that is that one Brandon Lee movie that had like Dolph Lundgren in it, and there's a guy that they have like in the interrogation room, and he like snaps his own neck. And I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember that, like that's the only cool scene for that movie. It's like, oh shit, can somebody do that? And it's like, no, nobody can do that. But as a kid or whatever, you took that forward as like, oh, people can do that. So.
These guys are nuts. They have all this weird skills. It's like, yeah, you know how hard, because in movies like neck breaks are seen as almost a two-handed tip of the finger thing. Do you know how thick those bones are that you're trying to, those vertebrae you're trying to separate? Like, you'd have trouble doing that with a crowbar. You know, humans are not designed. We don't have like twigs in our bodies holding us together. We wouldn't have made it this long. But yeah, there's stuff like that's funny. And there's no way you could generate leverage against yourself to do that.
Yeah.
Like, there's probably some Navy SEAL MMA guy who can snap necks very quickly because he's like practiced a lot, but most people don't have the strength or the inclination to just end life, just end your life. So then
But
go
yeah.
back to the station,
Yeah.
and they figure out like this is an immigration. Okay, Castillo also speaks Thai,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is revealed. Like, but with his DEA background, I was like, maybe he picked it up. I don't know. That's different. It's like that just suddenly happened.
But
But
or wait, like the stuff they have in, is that did they retrieve the documents or did they get these somewhere else? Was that the stuff that was in the safety deposit box?
they retrieved the documents after the guy swallows his tongue. So I'm assuming they found them because he stole the documents when he killed the two guys. So I assume they found that as part of their investigation.
Yeah.
But then, like, so they're looking through that, and he's like, "Oh, this isn't exactly what I thought it was. This is also like an illegal immigration. Like they're bringing people into the country to do stuff." And then Castillo gets like, "Oh, Candygram," and it's like, "Oh, it's a picture of like who's that?" It's like, "That's my wife, called Mei Ying, and it's his wife who he hasn't seen in forever." And that'll probably be explained.
Yeah.
In part 2 of the Golden Triangle.
Yeah. It's just a picture of a Thai woman. And it's like, I guess it's one of the people who have been brought in illegally. It's like, I wonder who that is. And he's like, it's my wife. It's like, dun, dun, dun. Well, it doesn't do that. It just says freeze frame and to be continued. So.
Yes. And this is one of the episodes where they play the entire Miami Vice theme out, which does not happen every week. Usually there's an abbreviated version, but for some reason, this was a longer one. Don't know why. I looked it up and no information. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting episode for Miami Vice because it's like they don't really do misdirects, and like probably 2/3 of this episode was a complete misdirect.
Yeah, it's like it almost ends like, well, the corrupt cops got shot and mutilated, so.
Oh, and there's weird stuff like that. Those must have been like real cops or somebody because they were bad actors, and it seemed to be all their voice dialogue seemed to be like replaced. It's like, this is weird.
Yeah, the ADR like people who can actually do dialogue. I'm the cops. See.
But yeah, it's like the last third of this episode is what makes it important. It's like because then you get all this like what's up with Castillo, and this is the most you get like what's up with Castillo this entire season. So
yeah, like I said, it becomes. I mean, I don't know, by today's standards, a little ridiculous, but yeah, Castillo just has this like endlessly dark past with really weird skill sets, and it's like, what? Who is this guy? Is this? Well, it's first it's DEA, and then as the series goes on, which we're probably not gonna do the whole series because it'll just take forever, but it's like, oh, now it's CIA, now it's like it goes deeper, but it's always around drugs and stuff.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. It's not like he's like suddenly Captain America, but it's like, wow, this guy has a really, really weird past.
Well, it's also an interesting reveal because like you associate like, okay, Colombian drug lords in Miami. That just makes sense because of like how close they are together. But if Miami is this place where you can just like smuggle in drugs, like in large amounts, it's like, well, yeah, somebody else might like try to get on the business, and like that area in Asia also has a ton of heroin and opium laying around. It's like they could hone in on the business. That makes sense, but like you wouldn't expect that to come into Miami Vice because the Colombian drug trade is just right there. It's like you wouldn't expect
a boat right away.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, the Golden Triangle would be too, but a much longer boat ride away.
Yeah. But I mean, it ends up not being in competition with drugs, but it still could be. But like, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if like the Afghan opium drug trade shows up in one of these episodes or something.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
I doubt it, but you know, that's the thing about Miami Vice. The world has to come to Miami Vice.
Yeah. Everyone's meeting in Miami. And we're buying drugs. So these 3 episodes.
Well, I know we have Russian gangsters in 2 of them. Just a mention in NCIS, and then a feature in and The Mentalist.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a connection between Miami Vice and the other ones. But they don't have to. But
Yeah, I mean, they're all okay, Miami Vice is way before a lot of these shows. I mean, I think Patrick Jane was probably 15 when Miami Vice. Yeah, so it's an older show, but it's an interesting because they're all like procedural police shows. Miami Vice is way more style over substance. But,
yeah. And also, it doesn't have like a formula like the other shows have.
No, that's the cool thing about it is like you don't know where this is going to go, but you do. You still find these common points.
Yeah.
Miami Vice, it's like the hooker with a heart of gold. Well, she's dead before the end of the episode, or this guy's really bad and he likes to hit women. They're going to shoot him.
Well, that's actually the thing. What I find like oddly like okay, this what holds up about Miami Vice is like what I expect from like an older police procedural show is I expect that the good guys to be super good and the bad guys to be super bad, and there's never going to be a time where the good guys are have to like empathize with the bad guys, but here they do.
Or compromise their kind of moral center.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see things as like, oh yeah, the world is more complicated than the laws we make. And so sometimes we have to make things slide to fight actual evil other than the supposed evil we put on the books.
Yeah. Now Jane understands that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
in a quirky, eccentric way. Right and wrong, sure, that's a thing.
But yeah, so that's why like I wouldn't expect that from an older cop show. And here cops can be bad and all that stuff, which I also don't expect from older cop shows. But
yeah.
So
Miami Vice is a unique show. Often copied, never successfily. I mean, but there are other cop shows that are dark and like you had The Wire, NYPD Blue,
The Shield,
The Shield, but those shows were almost like obviously reaching. Well, not The Wire. The Wire was just really good, well written. It was actually like this is all could be real. Whereas The Shield and NYPD Blue, it's like we're going to be heart wrenching, but we're deliberately like everyone's going to be compromised. There's going to be situations that happen.
Well, but they want the Shield and NYPD Blue, which aren't really comparable. The Shield is crazy, but it's like the Shield was like a dare. It's like, can we make you like a bad cop? It's like, how bad is the bad cop? He shoots other cops. Like that's how bad this bad cop is.
Yeah.
And guess what? People liked him because The Sopranos.
I'll definitely say, because I did actually DVR that quite a bit, and it's like it reached a jumping the shark moment. It's like, how compromised is this guy really gonna be? But yeah, those are I put those in the genre of like with a Miami Vice because it's like we're gonna be a real edgy cop show.
Yeah,
and it's almost like it was like up on blast. Whereas Miami Vice is like, oh, these are good-looking guys with cool suits, and they have fun jobs, and they've always got good one-liners. But there's also like, oh, they're just surrounded by evil, and it's destroying them too. But it's not. It was the '80s, so it wasn't. Like,
well, also like the way they frame Miami Vice is it's okay for it to be unreal, whereas the other shows are trying to frame it as like this is the reality.
Yeah,
it's
Miami
like
Vice
it's completely ridiculous. It's like okay if Miami Vice is completely ridiculous, it's right there.
Miami Vice is like a fantasy world. It's like Miami is an artificial place full of these artificial people and. Because think of all the things we've seen in Miami Vice this year that's nuts, like Stinger missiles, all kinds of crazy stuff. But it never really leaves its, it kind of stays within a certain defined. It's like, okay, is this the limit? Is this the limit? Like, it's like they've never gone this far before. And they also do characters well. They also do like, okay, here's a character and we're bringing him in and you're going to like him. And he's gonna
that's the thing. They make likable characters. Like even the guys who are supposed to be the criminals are likable characters most of the times, except for the people that are like real evil. And then like those people like never get their comeuppance, or eventually they do. But
Yeah, but it's almost anticlimactic. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I killed 70 people. We got him. Too late. But yeah. But Miami Vice is also exclusively about like the drug seedy underworld of, because
Yeah, well, I mean that's mostly what you expect, but they have done a bunch of other stuff where it's like, counterfeit stuff. You the sex trade. What else have they done? Oh, pornography, stuff like
yeah.
that. Like they've covered the other vices, but usually everything rolls back into the drug trade because that's the most violent one.
Yeah, the drug tag is exciting because like the novel No Country for Old Men, like when the assassin in the movie, Anton Chigurh, was explaining that, says the problem with selling drugs is huge profits bring huge egos, and men don't really know their place. And that was what was different about him, is he wasn't an egomaniac or anything. He was just like, I'm going to run to the drugs as efficiently as I can, because he takes over the whole drug trade essentially. And it's like, we're not going to have shootouts in the desert and all this stupid money. I'm going to clean up all these loose ends, and then I'm going to kill everyone who tried to kill me, or even spoke a harsh word to me once. I'm just killing everyone. But yeah, that was this thing. Like, yeah, drugs bring all kinds of people into the game that probably shouldn't be there, because they're either not smart enough, or they're either too violent or not violent enough. There's a balance you have to strike. You have to talk to God occasionally about what you're doing, and somehow through that
they make their way through fear and not through like good business skills.
Yeah.
Well, if you liked what you heard, and how couldn't you? You can find us at Spotify. I keep saying iTunes, but it's actually Apple Podcasts. They split the thing. I haven't used Apple for so long, I forgot they split them.
Oh, okay.
It's like a separate app on your iPhone. It's just called Apple Podcasts. We are there as well. You're listening to somehow, but you can find us on the internet at anchor.fm/Verhoeven Effect, or you can just put in verhoeveneffect.com. The way I like to remember how to spell Verhoeven is Verho, Verho, and then you just put an even at the end. Verhoeven Effect. At Anchor FM/Verhoeven Effect, that we have listener support. You can support us a monthly stipend at $9.99, $4.99, or $9.99. We also I have to design and make a Verhoeven Effect t-shirt. We'll have a t-shirt for Verhoeven Effect. Right now we have an American Greed Factory shirt available for sale at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. You can get our other podcast, American Greed Factory t-shirt. It's just the logo and it says American Greed Factory on it. That's where you can also follow the podcast on Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. Twitter /@Verhoeven Effect. You can also, we have a Verhoeven Effect Facebook page. You can find that there. So we're all over the internet.
We're everywhere. Find us somewhere. Let us into your minds.
So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Colin.
I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.